Got for strange kin people. Little red roosters on the prowl. If you see my little red rooster, please drag him on home. If you see my little red rooster, please drag him on home. There ain't no peace in the barnyard since my little red rooster been gone. Yeah. If you see my little red rooster, please drag him on home. If you see my little red rooster, please drag him on home. Yeah. There ain't no peace in the barnyard since my little red rooster been gone.
Good evening, and welcome to Cambridge Hot Club of Boston. I'm Bill Goldberg, your host every other Wednesday evening. I've had a little hiatus due to the summer. And to my right and to your left is Dave Bryant. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Bill. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
I thought Spoonful was supposed to be 20 minutes long, though. I guess that gives away when I grew up.
Yep. It's a better version. Yeah. That's from James Blood Ulmer, the Memphis Sessions, done about 20 years ago in Memphis. So, welcome everybody, and it's good to be here. A lot of you have been here before, so you know kind of the program. But Dave lives in Cambridge and is a keyboard player, educator, composer, band leader. He has a very strong series called Third Thursdays. And I sent out a little blip about that earlier if you had a chance to read it. Anyway, welcome, Dave. Everything going okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see my man Neil Leonard is online here. Neil is going to be joining us on the third Thursday of this month. A great group of musicians. But yeah, this is a wonderful series we've had the opportunity to do with some support funding from Appalachian Springs Foundation, who actually have the furtherance of Ornette Coleman's artistic legacy written into their mission statement. And so these were folks that I had known for years and years through Ornette, that were friends with him. And so we've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. And the primary focus to start off with was to feature a lot of Boston musicians, and also to bring in from out of town some of my fellow Ornette sidemen, and sometimes getting them to a chance to play together, and other times, just do a lot, big variety of stuff and combine people in unusual ways. But we're starting to branch out a little bit more and have some more out of town guests now. I did not take for granted that we'd go past that first year, but uh, so far so good. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. And of course, one of our guests last November was indeed James Blood Ulmer. That was quite an experience.
And you can see that concert in its entirety on YouTube.
Yeah, we generally get, several hundred views to videos, but that the video of the night that James Blood played, and half of the video is him as was that night, and the other half is my friend Neil and I that just came on here. And that video has gotten upwards of 15,000 views.
Wow.
So, and according to
15,000.
yes, and according to the fellow that works on my YouTube account, some of them actually stick around to hear me and Neil. So that's been very gratifying. Yeah, I said, "Is everybody tuning out at the end?" And he said, "No, no, no. They're checking out the whole thing." So that's great.
And you can introduce Neil since he'll be at your concert.
Yeah, you got audio,
2
Neil?
weeks. Yeah, his
I should. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you
Okay,
go. There you
good.
go, man. Very cool. So, yeah, I know we're going to be talking about some different things that I've got in the pipeline, and I'm hoping Russ Gershon's going to be on a little later to talk about the thing our Listen to This group is involved in next month. But yeah, did you want to say a few words about what we've got planned for September?
You're asking me.
I sure am.
Oh,
I
okay.
I can fill some dead air for you, but
No, no, no. Well, first I'll just say that it's a honor, a privilege, a pleasure to work with Dave Bryant again in Third Thursdays. As some of you might know, I've known Dave for, I guess I have to kind of give away our age a little bit, but I've known Dave since around 1978 or 79. When we arrived in Boston and immediately started playing together and have been playing together ever since in a variety of formats. And speaking to the harmonic theme of this series, I was so excited when um, towards the end of Dave's time in prime time, he brought me to New York one time to play for Ornette and spend the afternoon with him, which was just unforgettable experience. We've connected in so many ways and had so many great conversations about music. So I feel very close to Dave.
I still
And
remember when Ornette said, "Is this the kind of you did a demonstration of some music software you were working with?" And Ornette said, "Is this the kind of thing you teach at Berkeley?" And you said, "Oh no, Berkeley's a vocational school."
I can imagine saying that, but I don't remember saying that. I hope he got it. Uh, I actually heard him play at Berkeley one time in Berkeley Performance Center, and that was really great. I wonder if James Kamal was with him at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So, in any case, to get back to what we're doing this third Thursday on September 19th, we have a really wonderful group of musicians. One of them being James Kamal, who I believe was in prime time a little bit before Dave, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
But I heard with in an amazing concert with Ornette at Berkeley Performance Center. I think the record that came out at that time was Of Human Feelings. Was that the name of it? What was the name of
Yeah,
the record?
that was around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so in any case, the drummer we're working with is James Kamal Jones, who's this spectacular drummer, one of the truly amazing drummers I've worked with. So I'm so glad to have another chance to play with him. Of
One
course,
of Boston's best kept secrets, I'll add.
one of Boston's best kept secrets, no doubt. And he also played in the concert that was opposite James Blood Ulmer. So part of the magic that night was made by James Kamal. We have a young bassist named Max Ridley, who I think is about 33 years old. Max came to, I've known Max for years. I actually met Max and his father in a playground in Jamaica Plain because our kids are the same age. So I met them from sandbox age pretty much. But lo and behold, Max showed up at Berkeley as a student on a presidential scholarship. So he came with a full endorsement of the school as an upright bassist. And I've heard him a number of times and never fails to totally amaze me. I think we've only played once. Once at Berkeley, I did I co-taught a class for a semester with Terrence Blanchard, the trumpet player and multi-Grammy winning trumpet player and composer, and we played a concert of jazz and electronics. Terrence played in all of the pieces, which was such a thrill. And I think Max was kind of the house bassist for that concert. So Max and I have worked together once, maybe once or twice before, but he's a really wonderful bassist. So I've watched grow and grow. So on bass, we have Max Ridley, and we have on guitar, David Tronza, who again is a colleague of mine at Berkeley, who is an amazing slide guitarist. He plays slide electric guitar, sometimes prepared. In those cases, I've seen him attach things to the strings, play with chopsticks, all kinds of inventive things. But he's an utterly fascinating musician because he has such a broad background. He is a phenomenal blues player. He's an untouchable jazz player. He's played with so many incredible musicians in a long run he had in New York. And what he's really focused on now is free improvisation and playing exclusively slide guitar with effects. Sometimes it's prepared. He has amazing ears, and he's just a total pleasure to play with. One more connection with Dave was that he and I recorded a record with this is up on Spotify and Apple Music, and Bandcamp, a record with a UK-based electronic musician named Scanner.
That's
So,
Dave Tronzo.
Dave Tronzo, yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm figuring we got to keep we'll have him be David and me be Dave. So we keep this.
Or
Good,
Tronzo.
good. That's, yes, thank you. So David Tronzo, yeah, keep after me on this. Good. So in any case, we worked together in a number of formats, one being a pretty amazing studio project that began 10 years ago with Robin Rimbaud, aka Scanner, who's a artist based in the UK. The record, I believe, is called the Berkeley Sessions, actually, and it features musicians from Club Delph, Mike Rivard on bass, Dean Johnston on drums, David Tronzo, Scanner, and myself. So that came out in the past few months. So in any case, I'm just thrilled to play again with you, Dave. Of course, we've known each other for years, and then I've had different connections with the other three musicians that we're playing with. We've never all played together, but I think that that's part of the excitement of this. And one of the fun things about this series is, new people get together and do things at times, and that can be incredibly powerful. At the times I've done it in this series, it's been incredibly powerful. So I'm totally looking forward to it.
Yes, Neil and I have plenty of stories on each other, so we can blackmail each other with. So
Pretty much.
there's a balance of power there that worked well for us.
Yes, pretty much.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions before we move on to some more music? So Neil or Dave, we talked about what you wanted to play. Neil, is there anything you want to listen to or share with the audience? Your Scanner record up.
Oh, good. Yes, I could say play that because you would hear recent work which I've released, but also a record that also features Dave Tronzo.
Kerosene
David
Blues
Tronzo.
or any particular aerospace?
It sounds, I would say one of the first two ones. I had to honestly say I don't remember the order right now.
All right, start at the top there.
Okay.
Start at the top. That's always a good idea.
Kerosene Blue. No, Kerosene Bliss. I understood Kerosene Blues, but not Kerosene Bliss. Okay.
I once interviewed my mother not so long before she died, and I asked her for her most memorable listening experiences. And what she came up with was very surprising. She said her first listening experience that she really remembered was hearing a Zeppelin bomber coming over London in the First World War. But then the second one was hearing a telephone in the house. And it was like a magical event. It was like something supernatural, that you picked up this device, this Bakelite device, and you could speak to somebody who wasn't there.
And that is called The Kerosene Bliss, from a new record by Neil Leonard, who was in the house. Any questions to Neil? Any comments, Neil, about this? This is a relatively new recording you did in Boston, but you've worked with Scanner for a long, long time.
Yes. The session itself took place actually 10 years ago, and which was, I think, the almost the last time Scanner was in the US. We recorded this in half a day, and we didn't really expect that we would get an album's worth of material, and instead I just kind of arranged recording time, chose the musicians who I thought would be good for this impromptu session. And the way the session unfolded, it must have been a 4-hour session. We did a sound check, which turned out pretty well, very well, and actually made it onto the CD. I don't remember which track it is. And we would record a improvisation and then pause and record another one, and we just kept on going. So we recorded each one of these pieces just one take. And after the end of our 4-hour session, we had, maybe an hour, 15 minutes of material. And it's so much material that we didn't really kind of know what to do with it. So we just kind of left it for a while. We felt it would be like a really big endeavor to kind of delve back and try to mix it. And 10 years later, we just made minimal changes Robin overdubbed some parts to kind of thicken out the electronic part. But other than that, every single thing we recorded, all the pieces we recorded, we used. Everything you hear played by guitar, bass, drums, and saxophone was played right there in the spot, no editing. So the recording the album has a really cohesive feel to my ear, but we just kind of went in and did it on a whim, and it turned out far better than we thought. So the final production of this work came out or took place earlier this year, probably around March. Robin likes to work, Scanner likes to work really quickly. And I think I was getting ready to go play in Morocco at that time in late March. And literally every 2 days, he had remixed everything. He made one more revision and kept sending them to me. So I would stop what I was doing as I'm getting ready to go off and play, and listen, take notes. And I guess at that point, my role was a little bit, in my mind, was a little bit kind of wanting to function as I imagine that Tio Macero might have functioned. We had a lot of improvised material, and my thought was, what's the minimal amount of pruning and tweaking we can do to actually make this feel cohesive? So it was, the most restrained kind of editing that I can, remember doing and done in recent memory. But in any case, it's kind of a little bit like what Dave and I are doing in the 19th. It's a collection of really great musicians they can groove, they can play ambient, they can play electronic, they listen incredibly well. And with that combination, really wonderful things can happen.
And I see our man, James Kamal Jones, joined us too. We've been bragging on you, James, saying what a well-kept secret you are in the Boston area.
Good evening,
Good to see you again.
Good evening. Great to see you, James.
I'm logging in a little late and I'm in between eating dinner, but I wanted to shout out to you guys. And I hear what you're saying there. Very important.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
I'll let you eat. We're going to have to eat soon, too. Or Dave.
Yeah. Just got back from...
Won't put you on the spot again until the 19th. How's that?
Sounds like a plan.
So for those who live in Boston or near Boston, make sure you make it down to the Harvard Upwards Church in 15 days. And 3 of the people on the top row of the 5 will be performing. Earlier this summer, Dave had Jamaluddin Takuma on his set, and I guess you recorded this 4 or 5 years ago, but you just released it now.
The basic tracks we did December of 2018, and then there was some. Well, I should say something about it. Wire and Bone. That's actually a picture of my back porch there. But and so look at it before we repaint it. And this is with, as Bill said, Jamaluddin Takuma on bass, Chris Bowman on drums, who was Neil's roommate back at Berkeley, and George Garzone on tenor. And sorry, but George really did have a much better time at the session than it looks like from that photo. But that we had 2 shots and he looked that way in both of them. So I couldn't do anything for him there. But anyway, yeah, we put those down, and then we had some guitar overdubs from both Kenny Wessel, who I played with in Prime Time, and Eric Hofbauer, a guitarist that you might be familiar with, that's in the Boston area here, and is my department head at the Lange School, where I teach. And I know he's done quite a lot of interesting things as a group that has done adaptations of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, and Charles Ives and Messiaen, and they do a lot of good stuff. But anyway, that band, we're actually going to be playing in November at Shapeshifter in Brooklyn, Matthew Garrison's club. And I had a couple of tunes I wanted to play from this for you. One was the first tune, Perseus Tonight, which I actually wrote for another session that I did with Jamaluddin way back in 2001. And so we're finally releasing a version of it here. And that goes into another piece called Leviathan. That was through the wonder of technology cobbled together from some different performances at different times. I'm not going to give it away for you before you hear it. So, but I have a good story about it after you hear it. From that, we're going to go right into the weather report tune American Tango off of Mysterious Traveler. And the reason I wanted to play those back to back was when I was putting together Leviathan, I had very much in mind, you know how when you have a great record that has a great second track on it, and I'm sure everybody has their own favorites, but one of them that came to mind for me was this American Tango coming right after Nubian Sundance on Mysterious Traveler. And just the vibe of it, the way it kind of lets you down easy after this kind of exciting, busy opening track. And this, uh, when I was working on putting Leviathan together, I thought this is really coming together with a vibe that reminds me a little bit of American Tango. I want to kind of go for that. And there's a guitar, what sounds like a guitar solo in it, but it's not. It's me on a keyboard. So I'll give you that much of a spoiler. But there's one phrase I play that I stole directly from American Tango from Wayne Shorter's solo in that. So when that happens through the magic of visual radio, I'm going to give you one of these when I play it. And then when Wayne plays it, I'm going to hit you again. Okay, so you have to pay attention. So sorry for those of you who just have the sound up and are walking around the kitchen. Yeah, that was actually a nice blend there. I hadn't realized how close it was. But I got talking to Bill and I forgot to give you the high sign. So I'm sorry on that. So I guess you'll have to buy the CD now to discover the hidden reference. But yeah, what happened with this was we had so many overdubs and edits and things like that off of these very strong basic tracks that we did in the studio in 2018. And a lot of the stuff we added on was in the middle of quarantine, and a lot of the studio tracks are interspersed on here with duets that George Garzone and I did, where I'm playing acoustic piano and he's playing tenor, and that was such a beautiful thing, and that has some of the energy of coming together from months of not playing and not being with other musicians and not seeing each other and just getting together and just a lot of energy in the room and taking off with that. So it really means a lot to me personally that George I've admired for so long. It was one of my Berkeley teachers to be able to document the rapport that we've also built up over playing together many years. But what happened with that solo, with that guitar solo, this is really weird because when I sent the finished recording to the two guitar players that did the overdubs on other tracks, both of them wrote back to me and said, "Is that guitar solo the other guy?" And I said, "No, that's me. That's not a guitar player." And I was kind of amazed because, and other guitar players that I know have said to me they thought that was a guitar, and I thought it was so obvious that it was not a guitar. I thought it was painfully obvious that it was not a guitar, and I hoped it wasn't too gimmicky that I was trying to sound like a guitar. But no, I've had when I play it for other synth guys, I said, "Do you think that sounds like a guitar?" And they go, "No way." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, no." So I'm not sure where that comes from because I would figure they'd be trying to map it on the neck, of the guitar about how you would play it if you were a guitar player, and they think, "Well, that doesn't make any sense." I would figure that's how they'd think about it, but no, I'm afraid I did that overdub. I was telling Bill, sitting in the living room in my pajamas. And in this day and age, the engineer had the laptop set up on our dining room table. And, we did a couple of passes. And then I was playing a couple of electric guitar samples MIDI together. And then what we did was we went and set up a loud, distorted guitar amp in the basement of the engineer's house, and we ran it through that really loud, and then with a microphone in front of it, and then just redubbed that onto the track. And so that was really fun because the first time I hit that kind of, and we heard it through those big speakers, it was that was pretty cool. My inner 13-year-old was very fulfilled. But Jamal Adine, when he heard that track back, he was like saying, "Did you have another bass player? Who played that? I don't remember playing that." And I said, "No, that's you." And he goes, "Really? Really? Okay, okay." So yeah, that was actually part of a longer jam that was set up. I know Neil was bragging about how few edits he had on his album there, but I'm afraid but we
Outdone.
but we went in there like Dr. Frankenstein on this thing, man. This is all through the magic of better living by science, man. This was tough. But yeah, it was really neat though to put it together. And we had some percussion overdubs on there that went a long way to hiding some of the edit points. So you're getting a view of the sausage factory tonight, folks. This is how it's done. Not pretty. I'm sure Jimi Hendrix was sitting there in his pajama bottoms too. I hate to spoil it for you, but nobody thinks that's funny.
But they were tie-dyed pajamas.
I had a question here from Willie saying, "Dave, were you here when Calvin Weston told about his audition with Ornette? how he played weather report drum parts during Ornette's audition pieces and figured he'd bombed. But afterward, Ornette's first words were, "You have a passport, don't you?" Uh, oh, so first of all, on the chat here, I know that where it says DB, that's actually Bill answering your questions on the chat there. So if anybody's trying to get in touch with Bill, I don't want you to think, he's ignoring you. That's actually Bill. Um, but the way at Willie, I remember that story from Calvin because he told it to me when we have a series of oral history interviews we do with the Ornette Sidemen that I have posted on my website at dbryantmusic.com and on our Dave Bryant Music YouTube channel. And the way I remember it was, and he's told me this story a few times, was that it was Mahavishnu Orchestra pieces, because I know Calvin is a huge Mahavishnu fan. And we talked about it. And what I wanted to get from him was, well, what he said he did was he uh, picked certain Mahavishnu tunes to go with certain Ornette tunes that he had to um, uh, audition on. And so I asked him how he paired them up. And he really couldn't remember any details because I was thinking, is it time signatures? Is it something melodic? Is it, how is he thinking about this? But I think it was a real, just, free form, open, sincere, influence thing where he just sort of free associated between the two and just, got his head in that space. And then that was music he was comfortable and confident with. And so he was just able to take that and plug it into the Ornette thing. And that worked for him. And I know James Kamal, who's on this tonight, was telling me a similar story about his audition where he said the other fellow, when I told him to just play, the other fellow said, "Play what?" And I think that's when James knew he had it. But is it possible to hear some of the duets with George? As a matter of fact, yeah, most of them are kind of edited down kind of short. I'm trying to think where the best one to do. Um, uh, I can't I can't always remember which one's which. Um, I have something else to play first, but yes, if you don't mind, then we'll definitely get around to one of those. And actually, uh, Bill, this is funny because on the CD, like I do with most of mine, everything is kind of edited together and one track segues and overlaps a little bit into the next. And nowadays on Spotify, it's like everything gets a little segmented, or if you're working with MP3s, it's hard to get that effect. So I actually have to um, uh, if you uh, order the whole CD from my Bandcamp site, we actually have it set up so you'll get it without the edits, even if you just get the the download file. But yeah, so the way this would go actually on the CD is I have it going. I wanted you to hear Jamaaladeen's composition "Sunk in the Funk," which is which is a pretty good party album. There, that's one of his big hits off his Showstopper album back from the early '80s. And I had originally had that quartet with George and Jamal and Chris Bowman play at the old Willow Jazz Club for a weekend back in 1989. So that was the year before I started playing with Ornette, but I'd been going down to New York and sort of informally studying with him and meeting all the guys in the band. And we had played that song then. And so when I reunited that band for this session, when we got to about the end of the session, Jamal says, "Hang on, Dave, I got something for you." And he had someone back in Philadelphia send us a file, a PDF of the chart for Sunk in the Funk, and we printed it out there at the studio and ran it down, and that's basically what we've got on the CD. Then we had overdubs both from Kenny and from me with my guitar sound again. And so what I wanted to play for you now is actually, I'm well, I tell you what, since we want to get to the we'll just play Sunk in the Funk for now, so then we can get to the one of the duets since we've had a request.
Okay. So the dialogue 5 is a duet. That's
Yeah.
right after Sunk in the Funk. Okay.
Yeah, so if it goes to that, you'll hear a little bit of that. Yeah. But I was going to say, if you want to start with the sidestep, we could do that too, because that's a little straight ahead we went into. So you want to do that sidestep into Sunk in the Funk into dialogue 5?
That'll be it. Yep.
All right. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. I know that that funky stuff is either your favorite thing on the album or it's like I thought this was supposed to be jazz. So if you're in the latter category, my apologies for that. But if you're going to do that kind of thing, I'll tell you, Jamal Adin's the guy to do it with. I heard I can't remember the guy's name, and I saw this drummer do a clinic once when I was in college, and he played sessions on the West Coast, and somebody asked him how he practiced his swing feel, and he said, it's funny how great my swing feel is when I play with Ray Brown. And it's funny how funky I am when I play with Jamal Adin. It's like all of a sudden I'm, you know, Bernie Royale for an hour or something like that. But guys like him just the groove is just it gives you this visceral sort of thing that you take inside and you feel like you have it the next day. No, it's just such a great learning experience to play with him. Um, but yeah, that was a little taste of one of the duets. That's the last thing on the album. The way we recorded those duets was we the two of us just got together and played for like 45 minutes straight. And then I had a couple of other specific requests of type of areas I wanted to get into, and we recorded a couple of other short things. But then we went through and picked out different sections and interspersed them throughout the album. And so that was actually what was at the end there. So we're not getting our segues quite right here in the MP3 age. It's harder to do, but that was actually the end of that long 45-minute take we did, and then that's the end of the album. But I've got wanted to play another block of things for you. One is we had two different things weaved in throughout the album. One is a series of pieces called Travelogue, which Chris is playing a wooden slit drum, and the rest of us are playing with him on that. And then the dialogues are George and I playing the duets. And so with this is I'll show you a little bit how that works, where we sort of braid these three together. And this will be going from the first travelogue into the first dialogue, and then into a ballad called Too Cold to Snow, which was an expression of my grandmother's. But I was really that might be my personal favorite track on the album because I don't think it's one I could have pulled off when I was 20. It's when I heard it, it's a type of thing where when you improvise on a ballad like that and you're not playing over prearranged sequence of chord changes, it's really easy to have a clash or some awkward moment that it's difficult to recover from. And just with these guys, just such seasoned, experienced improvisers, uh, it just came off like a charm. And when I heard it back, it was one of those things like I couldn't believe nobody dropped the ball. I couldn't believe nobody said something they weren't supposed to, or their chair didn't squeak, or something like that. But I've always still just gotten a little thrill whenever I've heard this one. So I I hope my thrill is contagious, but we'll see.
Start with travelogue or dialogue?
Travelogue going to dialogue, going to Too Cold to Snow.
Got it.
Wait, it is. Yeah, that was all right. Very satisfying, as I said. Nobody dropped the ball. One take, baby.
So we just heard three pieces from Dave's recently released Wire and Bone. And you were saying this is your back. Oh, now I see where your back porch is. I didn't catch the background.
Yeah, my son actually came up with the idea of having these plastic bones that you can order off Amazon or Etsy or one of those sites. And we put them together with these multicolored patch cables that I had. And our photographer and videographer, Daniel Kurganov, who does the great videos for our series, came over and took the photo. So it turned out very nice, I thought.
You're listening to the Cambridge Hot Club. My guest is Dave Bryant, who is a keyboard player, curator for the Third Thursdays, a monthly event in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we've been listening last half hour, 45 minutes to his new record with Jamaluddin Kuma. One of his guests on the next concert will be Dave Tronzo. So we're going to listen to a couple tracks of his now.
Right?
First is a familiar piece. That's David Tronzo. We heard 3 selections with David. A couple pieces that he sent me. We started with a familiar Monk's Dream, and then we zipped back to a record he did in 1995 called A Night in Amnesia. And we did not hear Amnesia or Night in Tunisia. But, and then his last piece was a recent piece he did called Clips and Corks. You're listening to the Cambridge Hot Club. I'm Bill Goldberg, and my guest tonight is Dave Bryant. And any questions from anybody?
Okay. I should just mention a couple of things I've got coming up that we have such a wide variety of programming for the series. And a couple of bands have spun off, and one of them that was really surprising to me is we had a piano night a while back because I thought, who haven't I had locally that I'd like to have play on the series? And I thought, well, of course, piano players I never get to play with. And so I called four other colleagues, Eric Zinman, Pandalise Coriagas, Steve Lantner, and Tatiano Castro Mejia. And the five of us just each did a 15-minute set back to back. And on my YouTube channel, we posted the entire concert because I thought, well, everybody's just playing 15 minutes. I can't cut anybody back. But Eric Zinman has done a great job putting together a little reunion concert for us this Saturday night in Acton. And we're looking forward to doing that. And there's more information on that on my Facebook page. The other thing I was going to mention is, and towards the end of October, we're doing a 3-night residency with this fellow, Bill Sebastian, who had this big device called the Outer Space Visual Communicator that he used to accompany some Sun Ra performances back in the 80s. Did you see those, Bill?
No, did not.
Yeah, and that was here in Boston. I remember it was when I was in school. And I had a good friend named Bob Stewart, who was a great um, pop culture historian, who was quite taken with the performance and struck up a friendship with Bill and wrote a piece on him that ended up being published in an introduction to a book of Sun Ra's poetry. And that's the fellow, Bill. Today on Facebook, I posted when I sent a link about these performances to a friend of mine who had managed Bob's archives after he passed. This fellow sent me back a program from a concert with John Coltrane and Ornette. Coltrane playing with an expanded version of his group with Pharoah Sanders and Alice Coltrane and Rashid Ali. And were you familiar with that bassist, Lionel Johnson? I didn't know that name, but it was him. And then there were a couple of hand drum percussionists too that joined him. And then Ornette's trio with David Eisenson and Charles Moffett. But it's quite an interesting document. That came from my friend Bob Stewart's archives. And so that was a really great thing. Bob was one of those great people that, you meet some characters and when you lose them, they don't get replaced easy. And so I find a lot of things coming up from day to day that remind me of Bob, or in some way he still has some influence in my life. Really had a wide range of interests and talents. He had wrote movie synopses for TV Guide for a while. He was also the guy for a while who wrote the fortunes on Bazooka Joe comics that you get with the bubble gums. And he said that his most successful fortune was one that just read, "Help, I'm being held captive in a bubblegum factory." So I always, he was just a great guy to hang with. When I was working with Ornette in the 90s in New York, he was working in the production department of DC Comics, and he invited me over and gave me a tour. So that was a big thrill. And he's actually the guy, and he had a obituary in the New York Times, and stated there that he is given credit for coining the phrase or expression underground comics. So he was quite an interesting character, involved in many interesting things. So good. I'm glad I got to mention my man Bob, because it's always a pleasure to think of him.
So you're listening to the Cambridge Hot Club. My guest is Dave Bryant, curator, producer, performer in the Third Thursdays. In 15 days, they'll be performing. We met Neil Leonard earlier in the show, and we just listened to David Tronzo. We'll listen to a little bit more David Tronzo, but let me introduce you to the bass player for that gig. His name is Max Ridley. We'll listen to a piece called Evergreen, which he recorded on the album called Evergreen with Justin Salisbury, pianist in Brooklyn. Justin studied here in Boston at Berkeley. And then we'll hear one of a piece from Max Ridley from his own album called Red Tail, Evergreen. That's the album Swear Jar by Max Ridley, and a piece he wrote called Red Tail. Max Ridley on bass, Tyson Jackson drums, Kevin Harris, local piano player in the Boston area, on the piano, Greg Groover on tenor sax, also local. On trumpet, Matt Hull, Zoe Rose DePaz on violin, Eleanor Electra guitar and voice, Taylor Holland, banjo, Sam Edmund tap dance, Ian Berg tap dance. This was recorded here in Boston at the record company in 2022. Fancy Dave's in the other room eating dinner, so I'll ask him your question in a moment. We're going to do a set of music in just a moment with Muhal Richard Abrams and Duke Ellington. But first, here's a piece by David Tronzo called Bubba. David Tronzo. We listened to that record a little bit ago, and that song is called Bubba from his record Night in Amnesia. Reeves Gabriel and Dave Tronzo. You're listening to the Cambridge Hot Club. We're coming into, well, we've already passed our end of our second hour. Dave Bryant is my guest tonight. And any questions about Max Ridley or David Tronzo before we move into a new direction?
This ought to be a good gig on the 19th. Tronzo can play, man. That was excellent.
Yeah. Have you played with him before?
No, I haven't. You know, I think we had first sort of met online or something like a long time ago, like more than 10 years ago, and just, we'll have to get together, and then nothing happened. But this has been a long time coming, so this is good.
Excellent.
I sort of know him through Neil a little bit. Francie in the chat had asked for the surname of my friend Bob that I was talking about, and that's Bob Stewart, who spelled his first name B-H-O-B. And one time when I met another one of my heroes, the cartoonist Harvey Kurtzman, who started Mad Magazine and did a lot of other great things. And Bob had been very instrumental in the nascent EC comics fandom back in the 50s and had done some of the first interviews with some of the cartoonists and that type of thing. So I knew he had crossed paths with Harvey. And when we were talking, I mentioned Bob, sort of dropped his name thinking that would give got a glimmer of recognition from Harvey. And he just shot me this very serious look and silence for a minute, and then he said, "With the H?" And I said, "Yes, that's Bob, all right." So Bob has left us actually an amazing blog that covers many different subjects. And I'm going to give you the name of this blog, and I should actually type it into the chat, because what it was, there is this word that Harvey Kurtzman sort of used as a continually reappearing nonsense word, but he had seen it. I think he said in the offices to Mad Magazine had been reading this newspaper, or had it lying around the office that I'm trying to think what the language was. I can't remember. Czech or something, Eastern European, something like that. And the word, I believe it was pronounced Porchebia, is what somebody told me. But the spelling of this word is P-O-T-R-Z-E-B-I-E. That's it.
Sounds like a little Groucho Marx and the Marx Brothers.
Yeah, it's very, it's this kind of conceptual thing where you're not even sure why it's funny. And yet, the more it turns up over and over and over and over in those early Mad comic books, it's hysterical by the time you see it the 10th time, and you can't explain to anybody why you're laughing.
Well, speaking of the Mad Magazine, which, I mean, it's too bad today it's not, they put out compilations instead of real, but no. Since the late 1960s, I have been a devoted follower, and I go to Western Mass every summer, once or twice. And this year, our Airbnb was within walking distance to the Norman Rockwell Museum, which I had never been to. And I decided to go there. Plus, I have an electric car, so they have a charger. So I went to the museum, not as a biggest Norman Rockwell fan, but they have an exhibit on Mad Magazine. And so any Mad Magazine lovers, I mean, how many Mad Magazines get 200 of its drawings in one indoor space? So it's a great show.
Yeah, no, very cool.
So words from Willie. Was Bob also the guy that played some electronic device with Sun Ra?
He was an enthusiast of the person that had the electronic device, and that was not a sonic device. That was a visual light show kind of thing, but the way it was described was that the fellow played it like it was a musical instrument, and his name is Bill Sebastian. And I was looking for a website for this, and I couldn't find one online. But the name of this festival is the Boston Immersive Music Festival, and so it's going to be like a month of performances with the return of Bill Sebastian and whatever his current device for the year 2024 is. So in the dark about that. I know Neil is doing a show with him, Neil Leonard, who was with us earlier, and who'll be joining me on the 19th. But that was a story. That was Bill Sebastian. And he talked about Bill often to me, which was kind of strange because I've talked to a couple of guys recently that were friends of Bob's and sent them a link with information on this in case they were interested. And I thought maybe he just talked about Bill Sebastian to me because of the Sun Ra connection and he knew I was a jazz musician. But no, he seemed to talk about Bill Sebastian with everybody. Bob was one of those guys. If he had interest in something, he went deep. But a fascinating guy to talk to.
Many
good.
places.
So you found a little something there.
Yeah. Give me a couple seconds. Let's just get this fixed. Yeah, for us in Boston, here's the website. And it's about 6-7 weeks. Boston Immersive, they'll be playing. Anyway.
And so I'll be playing for 3 nights towards the end of the run there with Listen to This, which is a tribute band for electric era Miles Davis music with Russ Gershon, who is a favorite of all Cambridge Hot Club listeners, and Jerome Dupree, and lots of other wondering that too, wonderful Boston area musicians. But it's a really good band. I finally get to play with one of those jam bands.
Yeah, today in the Boston Globe, they put out the 50 iconic Boston musicians. And I'm not insulting you, Dave, but the first person that came to my mind was Russ Gershon. You know, they've got the people from Jay Giles. Anyway, I don't know half the musicians of that, but they were all rock and soul musicians, Donna Sumner. But, you know, think about, oh, you've been around here too, but Russ is I don't know how many people who play as often as he does.
Oh, for
in
sure.
Such a variety of music.
And I'm too Southern. I can't be associated with Boston.
Well, there's got to be some Southerners. Let's see. Anyway, you put together an interesting set of Muhal, Richard Abrams, and Duke Ellington. Why don't you introduce this segment?
I was telling Bill when we were throwing around ideas when I was on the show last year, and so finally getting to try this. This is just a personal thing that I've always been a little fascinated with. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Duke Ellington's New Orleans Suite, and Muhal Richard Abrams did an album called Blues Forever. And I've always thought that there was some sort of symbiotic relationship between the two. One song on Blues Forever is actually dedicated to Duke Ellington. And there's the way that side one ends, particularly, and then transitions into the beginning of side two on both albums. It just is as a framing device for how the album is organized on on New Orleans Suite was really fascinating, I thought. And then Muhal, to me, either consciously or unconsciously, seemed to sort of pick up on that and free associate a little bit. And when I remember going back and listening to both of them back to back, thinking, "Wow, this is very, very similar." And so, if you want to give us the titles, Bill.
You had Duke Ellington from New Orleans Suite, Portrait of Wellman Broad, or Broad, I think it's the correct pronunciation, is bassist. Second line, which refers to music of New Orleans during the funeral marches. And then the two pieces by Muhal, Duet for One and Blues Forever.
Duet for One World, yeah.
And there's another piece I was listening to earlier today when we were talking about Muhal, which may go to. But let's start with this.
I got a Muhal story real quick.
Okay.
Want to hear this? So I got to meet him because our primetime rehearsals with Ornette's cousin James Jordan, who produced the science fiction and Skies of America albums, used to come and hang out. And I was telling him that I had this Muhal CD that had a picture of him smiling on it at the end of my CD rack. And so every time I walked by, I said, Muhal's smiling at me saying, keep practicing, Dave. And he said, oh, that's funny. He says, I'm working with Muhal now. He says, I'm going to bring him in one day this week, and I want you to tell him that story. And I said, well, okay. Well, the next day, he's in with Muhal. Hey, Dave, come here. I'll go over. And he said, tell him what you were telling me. So, well, I said, I've got this CD of yours, hearing, sweet hearing, yeah. And I said, it's on the end of my CD rack, and it's plexiglass, so you can see the back of it, and you're the A's, Abram, so you're first alphabetically, so you're right on the end. And it's a picture of you smiling on the back. And I said, so every time I walked by, I said, I was just telling James, it was like you were saying, yeah, Dave, keep practicing, keep going. And the guy just looked at me. Muhal just looked at me like totally stone face. And James is laughing, trying to get him, to go along with it, and just nothing. That was an awkward moment, but quite memorable. But I remember speaking to him again at one of Ornette's birthday parties, and a charming fella. So, and of course, a great musician.
Muhal. Before we go to the music, I'm just going to remind you about some upcoming Cambridge Hot Clubs. In 2 weeks, Eddie Karp will be with me, and we're going to listen to the music of Joe Henderson. Focus will be on the great milestone years, along with some live, unreleased recordings with Joe and Alice Coltrane. 3 weeks after that, or roughly 3 weeks, we'll be listening to the music of Don Byas, Con Chapman, author of Rabbit Blues, definitive biography by Johnny Hodges. Con has just published the first biography on the great tenor saxophonist Don Byas. October 30th, my guest will be local guitarist Fred Woodard. And Fred, terrific guitarist, and one of his guitar heroes is Russell Malone, who sadly passed away suddenly last month in Japan. The second week in November, it will not be the first and third Wednesdays in November because of Thanksgiving holidays. Aidan Levy will be on. Aidan wrote Saxophone Colossus. He was on the program before, the greatest biography of Sonny Rollins. Sonny Rollins recently released a new book called Sonny Rollins Notebooks, and this is his writings in 59 and 60 after his first retirement. So we'll be discussing that book as long as and listening to Sonny's music. In December, 2 guests. Greg Osby will be up, and I think it's December 4th. Greg Osby, most of you know, terrific saxophonist on the scene for almost 40 years now. December 18th, John Kartolewski, local pianist arranger, who is the Mr. Ken McIntyre. He runs the Maconda Project. I think of him with Vince Giordano. Vince Giordano has more arrangements. He could fill up this room or the shelves with all the arrangements he have. Probably has 60, what is this thing called, love arrangements from the 20s and 30s. And Karnolewski has done the same with the great, great work of Ken McIntyre. So those are some upcoming programs. Right now,
I'm just gonna mention I did a panel for Jazz Boston at the BPL years ago on the history of the avant-garde in Boston, and Kordylewski was on the panel, and also just by Fred Woodard, speaking of people who organize and put performances together in Boston. He does a great job with that festival that he does in the summer.
he does. I've been to that festival a few times. The third week in July, I'm never in Boston, and it often coincides with the third or fourth weekend. So, no, but I've been to that many times. And his son's a terrific violinist, too. Duke Ellington. Hall, Richard Abrams, Blues Forever, and Duet. For that, two pieces from Duke Ellington, Portrait of Wellman Broad and Second Line.
Yeah, I thought it just amazes me that symbiotic relationship between those two sets of tunes, and the two albums themselves actually I think map onto each other similarly. That's Duke's New Orleans Suite and Hall's Blues Forever. But yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. And I'm just sorry the rest of you aren't here to check out Bill's bookshelves because that's one of the best parts of the experience. But thank you so much for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And one thing, and I'm sure our wonderful publicist, Mary Curtin, who's been with us all this evening, she'll have my scalp if I don't announce the shows we have coming up for the rest of the year. So I'm going to do that. We're really excited about next month. We've got New York saxophonist Scott Robinson, and who's also collects a lot of unusual instruments. He plays Barry with Maria Schneider's orchestra, and does a lot of great stuff. And we're going to have him, bassist Hill Green, and drummer Barry Altschul. And don't tell Barry that I bought my first album with him on it when I was in high school. But you don't want to hear that from a guy with white hair. But I'm afraid it happened. But that's really going to be something I'm looking forward to because he's been somebody that I've looked up to and respected a long time. And then in November, we have the return of Srini Raguraman, who's not only a wonderful operatic tenor from India, but also a singer of Indian classical music, and can sit down and hang in kind of a East-West fusion kind of jam situation like we did last year. So we're really looking forward to having him back. And then in December, this is a group that I have wanted to put together a long time, and it's finally coming together. And I think we're going to try to squeeze in a day of recording after the concert too. That's with the rhythm section of James Kamal Jones, who joined us earlier and is going to be with us on September 19th, and Hill Green, who is going to be on the October concert. But with a front line of trumpeter Russ Johnson, who's based in the Midwest. I did something with him on a trip to Chicago years ago, and determined to do something else with him, and we put it off for a long time, and so that's finally going to come to pass. And also joining him in the horn section there will be saxophonist Eric Person, who you might know from his work with Dave Holland, McCoy Tyner, World Sax Quartet, on and on and on. So really looking forward to that. That should be a great band. That's going to be one of those where I just put everybody together. My job as band leader is to knock over the first domino and then sit back and watch them make me look good.
That's one of those once in a lifetime groups that.
Well, it took long enough to put together. That's why it's once in a lifetime.
Maybe more, but you're doing a recording the next day.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, thanks so much for your great music. And I hope to make it. I should make it to your show in 2 weeks. I told you I'm going to skip Soft Machine to see you. Their first concert in 25 years.
Wow.
I know. Hopefully. Anyway.
Well,
your concerts are only a mile from my house as opposed to 40.
Well, this ought to be pretty psychedelic. So, you'll have the vibe.
Absolutely. And David Tronzo I've never seen, so I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. This ought to be good.
Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you, Cliff Bodenweiser, as always.
And I see Bill thanked Francie for me. So, thanks very much, Francie. A pleasure.
Cliff is the audio backup and can't do the programs without him. So thank you, Cliff. Thank you for everyone else. sticking around. I'll see you in 14 days. Eddie Karp, who you know, like Dave, likes to come up here. Welcome anytime. And we'll be digging the music of Joe Henderson, focus more on the late 1960s and early 1970s. And he was in a lot of some psychedelic stuff at the time, especially the stuff with Alice Coltrane.
James Blood's on a couple of those albums, right?
That's right. All right, we're going to go out hardcore tonight with the Little Moo Richard Abrams Orchestra. Good night, everybody. Thank you. And this is kind of a wake up in the morning song.